Well, hey, Vision. I am so glad you're with us today here in person, or of course we shoot the first service on Facebook Live. So I want to encourage you, if there's something in here that you think would add value to the life of someone else you know, and go home today, go on our Facebook page and take that message and share it with them. We want to spread it through social media, and also the videos we put out during the week, share those. Get your friends in here, because together we are seeing God work, and particularly this journey series has been fun. We're going all fall long, talking about life as a journey and how does God want to help shape us on that journey. We broke it into 3 stages. That first stage, the campfire talks. Like if I was going to sit with you around the campfire and say, look, I've been walking with God for 25 years. Here's some things I've learned that you should think about. Stage 2, we talked about gear for the journey, or actually having tools on your journey that God wants you to have and use wisely. So today we go into stage 3. And in fact, looks like our stage has snowed. Is anybody looking forward to snow? Hoping we have snow in December? Okay, because we've actually got some visionaries who were watching on Facebook Live this morning in Hawaii. And I was like, I want to start a campus, a vision campus in Hawaii. Anybody go with me? Okay? Because there's no snow there. I mean, if you want snow, you can't have snow in Hawaii. Okay, but I'm going Hawaii if I got a choice. Sorry. But anyways, on this journey, we're going to stage 3, talking about understanding who God is. So these last 4 weeks, we're going to unpack the different person of God and wrap up this journey so you can figure out, even if God calls you away in a month or a year or in 10 years, down on your journey, you'll have these pieces to carry with you on your journey. So today, as we start talking about Jesus, and is he a leader worth following? One of my favorite topics to talk about is leadership, because I feel like leadership is applicable to all of us. I mean, even if you're in middle school or you're retired, you're a leader. You say, man, I'm not a leader. Well, you may lead at work, or at school, or in your community, or your family, or even if you're going through life on your own, you are self-leading. Self-leading. So there's something in this for you today, I guarantee it. As we talk about leaders, again, a topic I love digging into because it's got so much potential. In our society, we're all looking at leaders, trying to decide who we're going to follow, who we're going to believe in. A lot of us football fans, we're Panthers fans. We like Ron Rivera. 2 years ago, he was coach of the year in the NFL. We said, take our Panthers, take them back to the Super Bowl this year, take them down to New Orleans today and whoop up on the Saints. I mean, come on, Ron, be a leader that wins. Or maybe you like music. Maybe you're a Drake follower. You get on Spotify. There are 26 million people each month that listen to him on Spotify. So don't say he's just a performer. He is an influencer. He's a leader. Or how about our presidents throughout the years? Whether you agree with them or not, all these different presidents that have risen to a level of influence in leadership. That's powerful. Or historical leaders throughout time, like Martin Luther King Jr. And the differences he made, not just in his generation, but in generations to come. We look at these men and women throughout time and say, what made them good leaders or great leaders? And I put out a video this week that talked about some of them and kind of alluded to the fact that I'll talk about some great leaders in here today. And one leader in particular who's got great courage and who will fight and will have compassion. And of course, if we're in church, I must be talking about Yoda. So Yoda, when you think about Yoda as a leader, and you're like, nah, he's not a leader. He's just a green creature. No, wait a second. You think about Yoda. This guy Yoda, he got a chance to pour into Luke. When he went to Dagobah, and he's like pouring into him, influencing him to take something on with him. Or he got to hang out with the Jedi Council and truly be leader among leaders. Now, okay, any Star Wars fans in here? Has anybody got their tickets already for the one coming out in December? Because we're going. But Yoda, this guy who would influence all the Jedi Council, and then Yoda, man, you put that whooping stick in his hand, and he hit that lightsaber, and man, he would take down Dooku and all these guys and fight, and he'd lead people, and we look at him and say, okay, there's leadership there. And then we look at that next layer, we say, how about Jesus? This guy that the Bible writes about, talks about, and we are going to evaluate him today as a leader. And again, with leadership, this is so interesting. If you come in today and say, well, Matt, I don't really believe in Jesus. I don't really believe in the Bible, or I'm kind of not on good terms with God. What you can pick up today just about leadership can still benefit you. That you can walk out of here and say, okay, I'm not exactly sure I totally agree with what Pastor Matt said about Jesus, but those leadership tips, those habits of an exceptional leader, you said, I'm going to take some of those. I'm going to try to live those in my life. So I give you the freedom to take that today, or Jesus, or anywhere in between, and you figure out what God wants to teach you today. But the bottom line that we're going to look at with this guy Jesus is on your personal journey, you got to decide, is Jesus a leader worth following? Because the questions we're going to unpack today is that, is Jesus an exceptional leader? And that is an important question, but if we're being real here, honestly, you're thinking more, well, is Jesus really worth following? And honestly, if we're being real, the question you're going to ask in your heart, is he a leader worth me following? Because honestly, life it's about you. It's about you. Your life is about you, and you're going to say, okay, Pastor Matt, that's interesting about Jesus. That's the things you're teaching about Jesus, but is he a leader that I want to follow? And I want you to take that question and wrestle with it over the next couple minutes, and you figure out if you think he's a leader worth following. So this guy, Jesus, he was in that story, that video we're watching in Matthew chapter 9. You're thinking, well, how does that tie into leadership? That was just Jesus and like a tax collector. What was going on there? In their society, a tax collector was the bottom of society. Literally, like in the bottom of the barrel, like the junk you scrape out of the bottom of the barrel. That's how the Jews would feel about tax collectors. Because the Jews were being oppressed by the Romans, and the Romans would come into a town and say, okay, I'm going to pick this guy here to be the tax collector. He's going to be the one that will go around to all the people and impose taxes and honestly have the freedom to tack on extra taxes so he can make a kickback. And we all be like, man, come on, you know us. You're one of our own. Why are you patronizing us like that? Why are you doing this? They would look at him and say, you are the worst. How can you be like that? So when Jesus would have an interaction with a tax collector, the Pharisees didn't like that. You can see that in the video. So make sure you get this. Jesus, he wanted to influence Matthew because he believed Matthew's life was going one direction, the wrong direction, that he had issues in his life that Jesus wanted to speak into. Now, Jesus wasn't just looking for a little bit of change or a little bit of difference in opinion from Matthew to shift. He wanted Matthew to do a 180 with his life. So how would you do that? As a teacher, as a rabbi, how would you do that to a tax collector? So you look at Jesus and say, okay, it would take an exceptional leader to speak into the life of Matthew so that by the time this thing was over, Matthew was writing a book about Jesus. Matthew was giving his life for Jesus. I'll say, what happened? What happened in those moments when Jesus interacted with Matthew and truly influenced him as a leader? So the way we're going to unpack this, if you got your takeaway card or you got your phone, your iPad, pull it out so that you can track with us as we break this into a couple pieces today. And the first piece is about the characteristics of an exceptional leader. We're going to try to measure Jesus to see if he's exceptional. And I want you to soak this in, especially our teenagers, that you're getting a chance to learn things as teenagers that will put you ahead of your peers. If you take these in and say, wait a second, I'd like to be an exceptional leader. And that's not being greedy, because if you're the best kind of leader, we'll see it in here, you care about others. So these characteristics of an exceptional leader, let's go through these together. The first one is influence. Because if you know anything about leadership, this guy, John Maxwell, he's one of the most renowned writers and speakers on leadership in the world. And he said merely that leadership is influence. Nothing more, nothing less. Leadership is influence. That if you think you're a leader and you're walking down a path and you look behind you and no one's following, you're not a leader. You're just going on a walk. That leadership is influence. So this first word, influence, did Jesus do this? Did Jesus influence people? I would say yes. I mean, look at all the things that have been written about Jesus, the songs that have been sung about Jesus, the art that have been put together about Jesus, the churches and organizations and lives that are all, consumed with this person of Jesus throughout time, generations. He has influenced billions of people. So I'd say, okay, exceptional leader, influence. Yeah, Jesus had that. Number two, communication. That an exceptional leader communicates well. Jesus, he could get down and communicate with a child or with a group of adults or a room full of people or thousands of all ages on a hill, and he could communicate in a way that when he did, you felt like you were sitting at a table with him one-on-one and he was talking right into your heart. Jesus was exceptional in his communication. In fact, the Jews in those days, they'd hear all these different teachers and people with ideas, but of Jesus, look what it was said of him. In Luke chapter 4, it says, the people were amazed at his teaching because he spoke as if he had authority. Not just another person flapping his gums. but that he had authority. An exceptional leader speaks with authority. Continues, number 3, inspiring. I mean, don't you want a leader in your life that helps you go beyond what you could do on your own? Jesus cared so much about people. He said, look, I want to help you go beyond where you could go on your own. Let's go somewhere together. Be a leader that will inspire you to go to another level. He motivated people to follow and to consider and to change. But here's one thing about Jesus that's sometimes tough to handle. And as the way I talk about my leadership here at Vision is to challenge and encourage you. So Jesus, many times, would come into someone's life and encourage them and challenge them. In fact, in John chapter 8, the situation where this lady who was caught in adultery is brought in front of a group. And the group, as their tradition would be, they picked up stones. They say, hey, the way we're going to deal with this, we're going to stone her. I mean, you think about the violence and brutality of that moment. Jesus walks up to it, and the Pharisees are going to test him. They say, okay, Jesus, what are you going to do? You going to let her go? You going to stone her? And they're all thinking he can't win. Either way, he can't win. And Jesus speaks into it and says, ma'am, I know you're a sinner. He says, for all you people around here, you can cast a stone if you have not sinned. And they're like, oh, man. And they drop their stones. They go walking off. Jesus could have said, okay, so ma'am, you go too. Be well. But no, Jesus, he speaks into her. He encourages her and he challenges her. Look at this. In John 8, Jesus, after writing on the ground, straightened up and asked her, woman, where are they? Where are your accusers? Has no one condemned you? And she said, no one's left. And Jesus said, then neither do I condemn you. And he challenged her and he said, now go and walk away from your sin. Go and don't live that sinful life anymore. A leader that is inspiring will not just encourage, he will also have a challenge in it that will take you beyond where you could go on your own. Number 4, persistence. We see this continually in Jesus' life, that he is a leader of persistence. And you know, as I look around our room, it's cool. Like I know a variety of people in here and what they do in their jobs. And I think about people that own their businesses or are managers of stores or saying, wouldn't you like to be a leader that has more persistence? That when you face opposition, when things come against you, that you don't just reel back, but that you lean into it. And Jesus had persistence to overcome opposition. He prayed with persistence. When he was stressed, he persisted and prayed. When people were trying to stone him and kill him and damage him, he said, wait a second, I still have a mission. I am going to persist. And people said, that's the kind of leader I want. The one that persists. In fact, it ties into number 5, which is guts. You're like, man, I don't see guts anywhere in the Bible. Actually, you do. If you look at Jesus, you see a leader with guts. You see a leader who we get this phrase, we got here at Vision, that we move toward the messes. We move toward the messes. Many times in life, people see a mess and they're like, oh man, I don't want any part of that. Or look what's going on in that relationship. Man, just steer clear of that. Or that person going on that path, I don't want any of that. And here at Vision, we say, wait a second. There's a mess, we want to go help. Jesus said, I will be a leader that has the guts to move toward the messes. And you know, that impacts people. Because if you've ever been in a mess and you want somebody to move toward you, and Jesus moved toward you, you say, man, this is a different kind of leader. This is a different kind of guy. In fact, in John chapter 10, there's a situation where he is speaking truth and people are getting so mad about it that they picked up rocks to stone him. And he didn't just cower. He didn't say, okay, I'm not going to speak about that anymore. He stood strong. He kept his mission. And you check out your takeaway card this week and dig into John 10. You see, he literally just walked through them. He said, I'm not going to avoid this. I'm going to walk right through you. I'm going to have the guts and the persistence to stay on track as a leader. Number 6, Jesus had discipline. Discipline. And this is a tough one because I know for those of us trying to lose weight or get up early or be a better parent or do whatever, and discipline is tough, Pastor Matt. I know it's tough. But to me, what discipline is charting a course and saying, I'm going to stick to it. Will you come alongside me and help me? Will a leader lead me in a way that I can have more discipline and stay on track? And Jesus said, I will be a leader of discipline. And this isn't a mean beater of your head discipline. This is Jesus is going to lead resolutely as a leader with discipline. He modeled this in his discipline to pray, in his discipline to stick to his plan, his mission, even against opposition. In fact, even when people betrayed him. When people said, I'm getting off board. I'm not going where you're going. In fact, I'm going to stab you in the back. Are you going to be a kind of leader that says, oh man, that does hurt. I can't keep going. Jesus said, no, let's keep going together. Indeed, let's have discipline. Number 7, protector. Protector. To me, the best leaders, they're going to be the ones who stand up front and take the bullet first. Jesus, he embodied this phrase we use here of defending the defenseless. We say at Vision Church, we're going to try to find, and God will bring to us people that are defenseless. And they don't need someone to kick them when they're down. They don't need someone to wave a finger in their hand. They need someone to defend them when they're defenseless. And we see Jesus do this with women, with minorities, with children, with the crippled, with people in danger, people that are scared. Jesus said, I will put my arms around you and I will be your protector. In fact, in Matthew chapter 8, he even touched a leper. You know, a leper, the guy that has this like death sentence in his body, and other people say, can't touch him. In fact, banish him out of town. And Jesus would walk up and touch, and he'd move toward that mess, and he would touch and be a protector for a leper. Number 8 is accepting. And this is a tricky one because in our society today, man, this is a slippery slope. People are like, hey, how much are you accepting? What are you accepting? What Vision Church? Are they compromising? Jesus, don't miss this, he wouldn't accept people's choices. He wouldn't accept people's lifestyles. He would accept the person. He would look at the person and say, I love you. He would look beyond what you do, what you think, the things that are the sin. He would accept you. And a couple of phrases we've embodied here at Vision, and for me personally, is a big one, that acceptance, it paves the way to influence. And if you look at it backwards and say, oh man, if I don't accept somebody, you can't influence them. And you felt this. You've been on the backside of this, have you not? Where there's someone in your life that doesn't accept you. They judge you, they don't like how you look or what you think. And you said, man, I'm not going to let them influence me. I'm repelled from them. So what we say is, well, we're not going to compromise. We will not accept, the lifestyle or the decision. We'll accept the person. That's what we do here. We accept the person. Now, the second phrase in that is that you can choose, don't miss this, you can choose to make a point or make a difference. This comes up big when you talk about politics, when you talk about homosexuality, when you talk about different issues in our society today, and you say, okay, here it comes, so-and-so's talking about it. Man, I got a point to make on this one. I want to challenge you. In that moment, will you have the self-control to remember that you can either make a point or you can make a difference? You usually can't do both. And Jesus said, I'm going to be a leader that makes a difference. He did not compromise. He was still that protector. He still had guts. He was accepting, but he made a difference. Number 9, a couple more of these. Compassion. Don't you want to have a leader? Don't you want to have a boss that has compassion? Don't you want to have people in your life that say, when you're down, I'm not just going to kick you or fire you or just get down on you. I'm going to put my arm around you and have compassion. In leadership, it's interesting sometimes that some leaders, they wouldn't say it publicly, but in their heart, they say, I love the crowd, it's just people I can't stand. And that's a challenge because honestly, we as human beings, we're pretty annoying sometimes. We really are. But a leader that says, I'm not just going to love like the crowd and the lights and all the aura of that. I'm going to love people. And Jesus, when he had thousands of people clamoring around him, he didn't just love the crowd. He cared for people. In Matthew 9, it said, when he saw the crowds, he had compassion on them. Like literally, he would look into someone's soul and he could see that they were harassed and helpless like sheep without a shepherd. And he would have compassion. That's an exceptional leader. Number 10 ties into it, a servant. If you've done much reading in the leadership world, this guy Jim Collins, who's not even a Christian, he wrote this book, 2 books, Good to Great and Built to Last. He basically did tons of research about companies that went from being just good and they're great, and companies that didn't just weren't flashes in the pan, but they lasted. And he said, okay, what's different about those leaders? And he built this chart of level 1, 2, 3, 4 leaders, and he said there's a rare level, a level 5 leader. He said level 5 leaders are built to last and truly go from good to great. And he said, again, this is a guy who's not following Christ. He said, the level 5 leaders are the ones who will serve the people they lead. He said, this really is revolutionary. America, they're like, that is so revolutionary. It doesn't make sense. You're the boss. They should serve you. You're at the top of the chart. Man, they should come and ask what you want and meet your needs and do everything you want. And Jim Collins said, actually, the best leaders, the exceptional ones, they serve the people they lead. So wouldn't you, wherever you're going to work tomorrow or any environments you're in, wouldn't you like to have a leader that actually served you? Wouldn't you like bleed for them? Wouldn't you run through a wall for them if they served you? And Jesus said, I'll be a servant. In fact, Jesus, in Matthew 20, when he's telling his guys about leadership and about serving, and I'm sure they're gathered around saying, okay, Jesus, so how are you going to tell us how we should serve you? Jesus says, just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many, Jesus lived it out. Said, I'll bleed for you, I'll die for you, I'll do what it takes to serve you and lead you. That's an exceptional leader. And then the last one, number 11, is victorious. Because after all, who wants to follow a leader that's losing? You want to win. You want that mission to be accomplished. And Jesus, he said, this is a tough mission. It's a tough calling. I will be victorious. And as he went through his life, I think his guys were like up and down, up and down. And then at the cross, they were like, this doesn't feel victorious. He said, this leader we're trying to follow, is he really victorious? And then 2 days later, these ladies show up at the grave, and there's an angel there saying, what are you doing? He's not here, he has risen. And it all changed. And they understood it. And for generations now, we've seen Jesus as a victorious leader, not just even in an empty tomb, but in relationships and in our mind and in our stress. And all these ways we can be victorious because of an exceptional leader like Jesus. So you package all these together, and you say, okay, man, maybe Jesus is in that category of like exceptional leader. And I'll admit, there have probably been other people in history who've been exceptional leaders. But my point today is not just to categorize Jesus, it's to set him apart. To say he's different. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to interview one of our visionaries who has seen Jesus work in his life in a way that Jesus is exceptional and has changed him. And at the end, I'm going to kind of wrap this up so that you can again wrestle with, is Jesus a leader for you worth following? So if you guys would welcome John Evans, as he comes up here to share. All right, John, thanks again for coming on up. I so enjoyed what John shared in the first service. That me and John have been on this journey together for about 15 years now, I think. And we went up to the men's retreat a couple weeks ago. Me and John and Matt over here, we were riding together. And we were just talking, man, about how God's working in our life, things he's teaching us. And as we were just hearing, me and Matt were hearing more of his story about how God had worked in his life. And it just hit me that it clicked with where I was going today. I said, John, you got to share it, man. You got to get up here and just talk about it. Because John, he doesn't, he didn't like accept Christ at 5 and live in the perfect family and have like a halo over his head and the perfect churchy life. That wasn't you, was it?
No, just a halo.
Just a halo. You had the halo or you didn't have the halo? No halo. So John has been, in ups and downs, and I won't tell any more, but I want you to dig in. Tell us about your life before Christ.
All right. Well, my family, we grew up. My mom was born in New York, Yonkers, New York, and my dad, who was actually born down here but traveled in the Navy and whatnot, and then ended up as a contractor in New York. Met my mom. Long story short, got married, had me. Then we moved around a little bit from New York to Chicago, and we ended up in the South. And we ended up in the South at a time when it wasn't exactly popular to be a Yankee in the South. So that kind of separated me and my brother and my sister a little bit. So we kind of found the outsiders, as we call it. I think about that movie. We were the greasers. And so we hung out. I was a pretty wild teenager. Got into a little bit of trouble here and there. And honestly, it just wasn't really a tie. I don't want to tell you that I didn't believe in God, because honestly, I just didn't really have an opinion about God, one way or the other. It wasn't that I didn't believe or didn't believe. It just wasn't. I was selfish. It wasn't a part of my life. We didn't talk about it much, and so I go through life a little bit, and I graduate and go to college, and at that time, about 20 years old, I lost my father. He had died with a quick battle of cancer. And that really changed my life a little bit. It was a thing, but it determined me that I was gonna go out here. My mom wanted to pay for me to finish college, and I was like, no, I'm just gonna work. We had strong work ethic in our family. My mom really instilled that in us. So I was working 2 jobs. 23, I owned my own home. Was married to my then high school sweetheart. And things from the outside world and people telling me even that I was successful. Things were good, but there was a void there that I couldn't really explain it. It just it was there. But that was pretty much my life before.
So this season then, when you started to possibly investigate more about God or possibly about Jesus, tell us about that.
Yeah, well, it came at a dark time in my life, to be perfectly honest. Like I said, I was married to a high school sweetheart. I was helping put her through college. She was a part-time bartender. And I thought, honestly, I kind of felt like I was a man, you know. I'd just take care of things, paying the bills. And on the weekends, we were partying. I mean, it was, we were at the bar, and, you know, there was drugs involved. But there was still this huge void that I could not figure out. And like I said, God was just not really a thought. It wasn't something I was thinking about. So I tried other things. I tried, you know, I quit all the drugs and alcohol and tried to get in shape. I thought maybe that would do it. You know, I'll just get in shape and feel in control. And there was still a void. And it bled into the marriage where at a point she left me. And that was a very dark moment in my life. And honestly, in that moment was, I don't know that I would have went through with it, but there was a pistol on my table, and I was seriously contemplating suicide in that moment. And I can't explain this, and I've talked to Matt about this before, but I'm a realist. So spiritual things, still, even to this day, I gotta grasp it. I know God is supernatural now in my life, but at that time, I had this pain that I cannot describe to you. It was ungodly to me. It was just killing me. And I remember saying in that moment, and I look back and I was praying. I didn't know I was praying. But I just said, God, if you're real, take this pain from me. And again, I can't explain it. To this day, I can't explain it. But a peace came over me that is unbelievable. It wasn't that I was happy, but I wasn't gut-wrenching pain. So in that moment, I believed that God was real. And then I had a lot of questions. I had a lot of questions after that.
Okay, so this next season then, so how did you decide, how'd God chase after your heart? How'd you kind of seal this deal of following Christ?
Okay, so in that moment, I believed God was real. And I look back, I see Wendell over there. I got to give a shout out because he really helped me through a lot of this, and a lot of people did. Matt did as well. But in that moment when I realized God was real, I said, all right, God, who are you? And I'm not one to believe in something just because you tell me it's okay. I need to know it. I'm a firm believer of digging into things because I'm not going to believe because you told me. So I said, God, I believe you're real, so who are you? There's a lot of people that claim to you. And, you know, I need to know. I need truth. I need to know the truth of who you are. So several things took place. The first thing I did was I started digging in. I started reading, and I read everything. I mean, I would read the Bible. I would read other things I found. I listened to a lot of people, both Christian leaders and also non-Christian leaders. I wanted to hear from everybody. I listened to things about atheists. I listened to all sorts of things. I wanted to know truth. And so that started my journey. And a lot of interesting things happened through that. Number one, I went through 3 phases of this. The first thing that I come to realize was, I want to go back because when I started reading the Bible, one of the coolest things to me was I started reading about Jesus, and it was totally different than the picture that I had of Jesus. I mean, I really thought that, man, Jesus is just some guy that's waiting on me to mess up, you know, and that's really, or that, man, I got to get straight, and then maybe I could talk to Jesus. But when I started reading the Bible, it was totally different than anything I thought. You know, he had this compassion, just like he had with Matthew there. And that really attracted me to Jesus to start. I mean, that's the kind of person I wanted to follow, but again, I needed to know some truth about it. So the first part of it was was Jesus real? I mean, that was a big question to me, and maybe that's silly to some people, but to me, it's in a book. I get that, but I need to know he's real. So I started looking into that, and historians who believed and didn't believe, nobody could argue the fact that this Jesus of Nazareth was a real person. Nobody could argue that. So that was the first step. Okay, this is real. He was real. So the second step for me was miracles. Now, mind you, this was about a 7-month process for me. It doesn't happen overnight. I wish it did, but it didn't. The second part was the miracles. I was really interested because I'm reading in this Bible about miracles. And I was like, wow, I mean, it seemed big. Wow, did he really heal a man, that was already dead? Did he do these great miracles? And so one of the things that really got me to see that clear was they talked about the Gospels. I was listening to a guy, and he was talking about the Gospels, that they were all written in the same generation that these people lived, that the same generation of Jesus. And a great example that really got me to understand about these miracles, that they were real, was a guy started talking about, well, that would be the same as me going into a football stadium. Say you went to Panther Stadium, and all of a sudden, about 2 years later, you said, on this day at Panther Stadium, I healed a man. He was dead. I brought him back to life. Well, those 5,000 people that were around and the 20,000 that would be at Panther Stadium or whatever, they would say, man, this guy's a liar. That didn't happen. I was there that day. That didn't happen. But yet Jesus did these things in front of Pharisees, people that wanted to see him fail, and none of them argued it. None of them argued the fact that he did these miracles. So that really opened my eyes to really wanting to hear more about Jesus and digging in more. But the deal breaker for me, and I don't know why this particular thing was such a big deal, but what really did it for me was the martyrs. I heard a lengthy speech, and I want to give credit to the right person. I think it was Chip Ingram. I'm not 100% sure, but he talked about how many psychologists were interviewed. Now, I'm not talking about Christian psychologists. I'm talking about, world-renowned psychologists, that they were interviewed, and one of the biggest things they said was, nobody has ever died for something that they know to be a lie. Nowhere in history has that ever happened. Many people have died for something that they thought to be true, but nobody had died for something that they knew to be a lie. And in the apostles' case, and I was reading all about this, so I was fascinated by this. In the apostles' case, all of them died. Well, all of them but John, and John was brutally boiled to death, almost boiled to death. But all of them were tortured and eventually killed for simply one thing, and that was just saying that Jesus Christ rose from the dead. And that, to me, was the deal breaker. For me, that is when I said, you know what, this is a real deal. No other religion that I had looked into could make these kind of points, could measure up to what Jesus did and the reality of it. And so to me, that was it. That's when I gave my life to Christ.
Wow. Let's thank God for that miracle. John, thank you again for sharing that. And John, of course, serves in a lot of different roles in our church, behind the scenes, production, elder. He loves the Lord. I mean, he's like Matthew, who John was here, and he got to hear. Like, how does that happen? So as I wrap this up, I need your focus for 5 minutes. And I'm going to give you 3 words that will help you. That when you get in that moment when you're sitting at work, or you're sitting at school, and someone's like, look, how can you believe in Jesus? How can you go to church? I mean, I see you wearing a Vision Church shirt, or, you talk about Jesus. How can you believe that? And you're like, I got faith, or the pastor said so. Or, honestly, that's not good enough. You need to know that what you stand on is true. So I'm going to give you 3 words that I always fall back to that help me. Because you talk about Jesus, not just being an exceptional leader, but the one that you want to follow, you want to give your life to. Here are the 3 words. All right, first one is prophecy. So say prophecy. Okay, prophecy is a word that simply means predictions. When you look in the Bible as even just a historical book, even if you say, man, I don't believe Jesus is the Son of God, I don't believe all that, but okay, history, I believe the history in it, you look in what's called the Old Testament, and there's over 300 predictions in there about Jesus. Now, you know how hard it is to predict what's going to happen next week or next football season or 10 years from now. Imagine predicting hundreds of years, generations down the line, over 300 predictions, prophecies about Jesus. Now, they all came true. And now, my mind can't wrap around how rare that would be. So let's wrap your mind around this. If only 6 of them, if just 6 of them came true, it'd be as impossible as taking apples and covering up the state of North Carolina in apples, all the way up to your knees. And if I said, okay, hey, Michael, I'm going to put an X on one apple. I'm going to blindfold you and put you in a helicopter. We're going to fly around the state, and you tell me where you want to land, Raleigh or Boone or Charlotte, and you get out and you dig down deep and you find the apple with the X. I got the one. Excuse me. That's how unlikely it is that 6 of those prophecies would come true. And how many came true? Over how many? 300. That's crazy. So the word prophecy will give you confidence that what was predicted about Jesus, it came true over and over and over again. All right, the second word that John mentioned is martyrs. So say martyrs. Now understand with martyrs, there have been a lot of martyrs in time. History, there have been a lot of martyrs. These martyrs, like John said, and I did not know that about John's story until we went to retreat, because these 3 words have stuck with me for years now. But these martyrs that died for Jesus, like he said, people won't die for what you know is a lie. If you're standing up for something that's a lie, you might go along with it for a while. You might even take a little bit of beating for it. You might take a little bit of persecution for it. But when they say, okay, listen, I'm going to chop your head off, unless you say this isn't true, you'd be like, okay, that's as far as I'm going. It's not true. I didn't see him alive. And when you look at that cross, don't just think about Jesus on the cross. You think about these guys. These men who said, I will take it to a cross. I will die a brutal death for something that I know is true. I saw it. I will die for it. I say, wow, there's something different in that. So you got prophecy, you got martyrs, and you got miracles. So say miracles. And with the miracles, this is so neat how God personalizes this. Yes, there's miracles in the Bible. Yes, there's all these healings and raising from the dead and walking on water and all that. So even if you said, I don't believe those, the miracles I'm seeing God still do are like this next picture. On this picture, when you look up there, the second row from the back, third row from the back, in that hat and the glasses, John Evans is a miracle. I mean, this is a ragged looking group of guys. And right here on the second row on the end is one of them who said, I'm a walking miracle. And you could go through these men and hear stories of life change. Stories of coming out of the pit. Stories of coming out of depression. Stories of making it through when their marriage fell. Stories of saying, there's no way I could make it without the power of God. God is still doing miracles. And if you've seen this happen in someone's life, if you've seen someone like Matthew who has totally changed, and you said, that's not because of a counselor, that's not because of a drug, that's not because of a book, that's because of the influence of an exceptional leader named Jesus, you'll say, wow, that's a miracle. So say prophecy, martyrs, miracles. When you think about Jesus, and if not just as he's an exceptional leader, not just if he's a leader worth following, but is he a leader worth you following? Remember our bottom line. On your personal journey, you got to decide. Is he the leader that you want to follow? Follow him once in salvation. That's what we call it. You're saved. And honestly, follow him every day. That you'll get up today and say, Jesus, today I'm following you. Monday, get up, Jesus, today I'm following you. Monday afternoon, oh man, I'm faced with some tough things. Jesus, in this moment, I'm following you. You follow him once, you follow him daily, you follow him in the moments. You have to decide, is he the one you are going to follow? So if you close your eyes,